Hi everyone, welcome to a new dedicated playlist on high trust. So cover everything high trust, HIPAA, and high tech, especially for healthcare organization. Or if you have to work as a third-party vendor risk analyst, you might have situations where some of your vendors will issue a high trust certification, and it's important for us to understand it. Or maybe tomorrow, even if you want to work for a company that they help organization achieve their high trust assessment or certification, this training is also for you. And I'll also take this opportunity again to thank you all for hanging in there, tuning in, sharing, and liking and commenting on our videos. Keep spreading the word. You guys, as of now, you realize that our channel is really rich. It's a lot of information. Tell me about it. Right. And also, initially, I had planned to have a free training on ISO as well as GDPR, but unfortunately, that training will not be free on YouTube. First and foremost, ISO, they are very big when it comes to copyright. I've been in communication with them. I even want to understand the percentage of material I can use to teach our students. And if it means that our student, if it means for them to buy those documents themselves, they can also buy. But that training, I'll just take a high level, I'll just prepare a video of a high level approach, but that training is going to be paid on our website. And also third party vendor rigs will not be free. Also, it's going to be paid on our website because I have put in a lot, tons of hours just revamping the third party vendor risk training. And I'm telling you, that's a training that once you do it, there's just no way you cannot get a job. Okay, because I will be developing right now. You all know that we are developing policy, but that one I will take my time to come up with a type 2 report that a student can use it. Like same thing you're gonna see in the in your working environment, the same thing that I'm gonna try to develop for our student to use. Okay. So that being said, also stay tuned because we have an upcoming live YouTube session, and then we also have our cohort trained session coming up in June. That notwithstanding, I'll just share my screen and then let's take it. Again, this is a thorough training on high trust, a very thorough and comprehensive training on high trust that I'll advise each and every one of you to, just pay attention, right, and follow. Especially if you're a working professional, even if you are new or somebody still working professional where you want to transition to other area or framework is important. And you guys, my belief and theory is for you to be a master of your field, understand how these different regulatory frameworks play, like what they do. That way you can work in any sector, right? I don't want to limit your chances. And we will see it as we go through this particular training. First, overview of high trust cybersecurity assurance. I hope I'm recording. Oh no, I'm not. Okay, I'm recording. Okay, overview of cybersecurity, high trust cybersecurity framework and the assurance program, my CFS platform, and as well as to go through the certification process. First, but what is high trust CFS? Is a comprehensive security as well as privacy framework. Remember, when we went through the categorization of information types, we were talking about security controls and they also talk about on privacy controls, right? So if you categorize your system using this 860 volume 2, that you want to determine the impact level for that system and then to determine the set of security controls that goes to your system. But that's why if we are going with needs, FISMA FedRAM, then we also have a mandatory step to perform the PTA to determine if that system is PIA positive or PIA negative. Is PIA positive, it means that we have a PIA, we need a PIA document, and those are all privacy controls. And likewise, that's why they'll tell you that this again is a comprehensive framework that combines both the security and privacy controls. And as of now, I don't know how I can emphasize anymore. Cybersecurity is all about security controls. If you understand security controls, I promise you, you'll be up there. And shout out to our student last night. They did an incredible job. I'm so proud of some of them. Like I was speechless. I'm not gonna lie. They played the role of an ISO external assessor as well as internal So this student wrote their policy, developed their policy, test those controls. The way some of them were even asking the question, asking question like read that person policy. It was a very nice session. And right now we just gave them another project to work on IR incident response for them to be able to develop the policy and also develop the policy, and then we'll also play the role of like internal assessor, external assessor, ISO, and then for them to be able to conduct the live interview, assess where they go through their pre-assessment phase, come through the assessment phase and the post-assessment phase, and they're going to be writing their report. And that reminds me, why continue with HITRUST? I'll also take some time to run up RMF. You guys know, like we've covered a lot, so I'll take some time to run that one up. But let's also see, it said this harmonizes information protection requirement from various sources, could be federal, could be state, international legislation, regulatory agency rules and guidance, or industry frameworks. The HITRUST Assurance Program provide a set of common information protection requirements, standardized assessment and reporting processes, ensure adoption by assess entities. That's a company, say for example, UST want to go in to seeking a HITRUST certification and acceptance by their relying parties. Maybe we have to rely on certain a firm that is being trusted or confirmed by HITRUST to help us achieve our HITRUST compliance. But this is a very nice thing that, as I said, we're going to learn a lot together, okay? So we also have my CFF assessment platform. What does it do? You can also just type my CSS platform and just go there. You might not have access to read, but just go to the platform or to the website and try to read. First, it says that it's a tool to help manage information risks and compliance needs. It also provides software as a service solution for one, performing assessment that helps perform assessment, managing correction action item. If you assess and there are any things that need to be corrected or fixed, they also provide it for you. And then it also enhances benchmarking or baseline as well as dashboard. So you already have the baseline controls that maybe depending on the type of assessment that your organization want to go with. And they also have that dashboard where it gives you like a raw statistical analysis that you should be able to analyze and see the lapses or gaps that you guys have. And they said this is also designed for organization of all sizes. So it doesn't matter what you do, but you can also go in for the HITRUST certification. How to get the HITRUST certification? First, it says that organization must adopt all requirements and evaluate elements defined in their assessment. Readiness assessment recommended to understand maturity level. First, you see you have to adopt all requirements and also evaluate elements that are defined for that assessment. And then you also need to understand there are different types of maturity levels that we will discuss, in the future. And then also had and granular requirements guides that guides organization to become HITRUST certified. And I love it because even going through this document, actually I got this from their website. It's a free, it's a lot. So I have to like make my note based on what I have on their website because it's out there for free. Anybody can read it. And it's a detailed, thorough, I'm not gonna like granular process that they have put out there. Okay. Then remember, I also talk of third-party compliance management. If you are relying on the third party, somebody that can help you achieve your compliance, we're going to see it's a lot. First, HITRUST also enable consistent third-party compliance management, collaborate with information security and privacy professionals to maintain standards. And we will see that shortly. If they are coming, we don't want to get any form of like conflict of interest. First, HITRUST have to certify that particular company and we will see the requirements, right? Again, and make sure that, they manage compliance management. There's no form of, bias or unbiased or whatever, or somebody can do. They don't do that with HITRUST, right? Also help relying parties and access parties to ensure alliance compliance. So it's not only about us wanting to be in compliance and making sure that is the code of ethics is being maintained. Even the reliant companies or the third-party companies is important. So HITRUST have put in requirements that everybody needs to follow. Okay. High trust assurance, what are some of the benefits? First, it provides insight into organization maturity and compliance because that makes sense. Bringing somebody before for you to be able to achieve any form of certification, then you also need to understand, your maturity level will definitely help you understand where your organization is at compliance wise or that particular information system, not necessarily organization, whatever service, whatever product that you want it to achieve the certification or obtain the certification, you also help you understand your compliance status for that particular product. It can be used to certify third-party requirement and proprietary processes. And as I said earlier, third-party management is just a big thing. We have a lot of our students who got jobs. They are working as third-party vendor risk analysts. For you to work as a third-party analyst, you need to have a core understanding on all these different regulatory frameworks. Okay, you need to understand them, because just imagine you want to onboard a vendor that issue a high trust certification. How do you intend to even onboard a vendor without you understanding what high trust entails, right? And this is why this is so important. And also, secondly, because there's a lot of competition out there, a lot of companies want to go with, third-party vendors that have certification, who can maintain it, make sure their security posture is good. And we will go through the step for organization to even attain, go through the readiness and also attain the certification because it's not an easy thing. But for you to be able to attend and get a certification, that simply tells us that we can trust you somehow. In as much as we will be able to perform due diligence before we can onboard a third-party vendor, but at least this one again is some form of assurance, telling me that you know what, this person at least have something that someone who doesn't even have it or who doesn't even have never heard of high trust before. I've worked with vendor like that you'll be asking questions and you'll be like, what? Are you for real? Yeah, so also make sure that, as I said, third-party vendor is an interesting phase, something that I've worked as a consultant. I've helped mature organization processes from traditional to all the way onboarding to like from scratch, create their questionnaire, board request a questionnaire and vendor questionnaire. So that is my baby. And again, as I said, I am literally revamping. I've never like carry out this training the way I'm preparing the docs. So make sure you can take either the self-space video if you want to take a training or you want to come in and take it, but that will be a dedicated course as well. But for you to work as a third party vendor, I'm going to insist you have to understand all these older core regulatory framework. Okay. Organization receive incremental value as they progress towards their certification. Yes, so you will chassis, we're definitely going to go there. So it's something that you do it in increment. You don't just go at once and say, you know what, I cannot achieve the certification, but we'll definitely see that subsequently. Okay. Okay, but let's look at some of the roles and responsibility of both the access entity, that's a company. Say, for example, UST today want to get the high trust certification, but what are those responsibilities that high trust expect from us? It's a lot, okay? So first, the talk of an access entity, we try to define it. It's an organization undergoing the process of high trust certification. They are responsible for ensuring their security controls meet high trust requirement. Here are the key responsibility. Do you see? They are responsible for ensuring their controls meet high trust requirement. As we'll repeat it, if you can understand, if you can have an holistic overview as to what security controls are or entails, you should be good. I promise you, you'll be good. First one, implement cyber or high trust controls. Say, for example, a hospital must implement encryption for all patient data to meet high trust cybersecurity framework requirement for data protection. Yeah, so maybe that is one, right? If we are receiving sensitive information, we want to achieve high trust compliance. Of course, encryption is one of those control that we need to have, being encryption in transit or encryption at rest, right? Maintain security management. For example, say a financial institution continually reviews its firewall setting and monitors sensitive access to ensure the protection of sensitive customer data. This also, do you see the way talk of management, security management? That's more of a common. So apparently a lot of companies will have to that they monitor, you do common. That's how you manage your risks, right? Even issuing like user awareness training, just like ongoing things that we do to be able to manage those risks that organization do have or organization have. Another one is respond honestly. Say during the assessment, a company admit that they haven't fully implement multi-factor authentication or MFA in all their systems. Do you see the reason? All their system, do they want to achieve high trust compliance for all of these systems? Again, you need to define what you have in scope. Guys, in scope, scoping is a big thing, right? Everything starts with scoping, like what we have inside, what we are trying to achieve. And even when you all are going through the ISO, I believe some of you had already had the ISO 27001 lead certification. Scoping is also a big thing, right? Ensuring the assessor understand the current status, provide accurate record. For example, a law firm provides all necessary security documentation. Oh, okay. They said multi-factor in all their system, ensuring that the assessor understands the current status, right? Because imagine me coming, you've not even implemented that, and you are not even honest, right? Maybe you just tell me it is there, and then for me to be able to do that, then I realize it's not there. First and foremost, you're not going to achieve the compliance, right? You also extend the time that you guys will have to implement those controls. And you know, this is big when it comes to SOC 2 Type 2 report. Because for a SOC 2 Type 2 report, it's not like you'll be achieving certification like HITRUST. So they are doing that, and then they will give you the actual report. And that is your inherent risk. Where if you have missing controls like that, and I'm assessing vendors, I'll definitely not want to go with you, right? If you have a lax environment or system, right? So the next one is also to provide accurate records. For example, say a law firm provides all necessary security documentation, such as their data access controls, encryption policy, or for the assessor to review, right? So you have to provide everything. And that's why I said provide an accurate record, exactly what you have. You just have to be honest. And then you also have to disclose any deficiency. Say, for example, an organization like USC today identifies that their employees' training on data protection is outdated and inform the assessor so they can work on corrective actions. So before they come in, just let them know any limitation you guys have. Say, for example, the talk of user employees training, if that's something that you all do annually every year, but maybe that's something that you guys do not like conducted it for the past 2 years, that's already a deficiency. And you want to be honest, that way they already know. And then they can also create, a correction actions or plan of action that you guys can use to be able to, follow so as to achieve your high trust compliance. Assess readiness. Also, before starting the validation, say a cloud service provider run an internal readiness assessment to check if their encryption or backup processes meet the high trust standards. And we're going to see, because high trust is big, right? Not any kind of internal assessor are you going to have. And that's why I want you all to see how important and how big GRC is. The fact that we will always get job no matter what, okay? First, we have to define the scope of the assessment. For example, say a tech company clearly defines the scope of their high trust assessment, focusing on their customer data management system and communications to their external assessor. Okay. Oh, I skip it. Okay, we talk about readiness assessment. All right, so you need to have like, your internal team that will check your policy, check your control to see if you all are ready. And before we go there subsequently, in our training, you go to the HITRUST website, my CFF, to you have like different readiness certification, or not really certification step or process that organization can go in for, right? Again, but this is something that before I even want to bring external auditors or to have a firm to come check if we are high trust compliance, or to take us through the certification processes, then this is something that I also want to make sure we really like perform, have good, everything is good. That way it's kind of streamline the processes, right? The next one is define scope of assessment. I already talked about that, how important scoping is. It says a tech company clearly defines the scope of their high trust assessment, focusing on their customer data management system, and communicates this to the external assessor. Do you see? So that's something that we also want to pay attention to, because before they could come in, again, everything we need to know what is in scope, what they will be assessing, and that's why it's important so that we also understand. And then support the assessment. For example, say an e-commerce company provide evidence such as security audit logs, access control lists, and personnel ability to interviews to support the assessor during the evaluation. This is also something that we're going to be doing. Like, it doesn't matter where you work, even if you are not leading annual assessment just within your company, you'll be working with a lot of different stakeholders. You collaborate a lot of people to collect evidence to achieve compliance. And likewise, so that's something that these folks will have to work, in conjunction to aid this external auditor assessment, and especially if you guys are trying to achieve the certification. The next one, also fund the assessment. A healthcare provider budget for the entire high trust assessment process, paying for the readiness assessment, validation, and internal resources needed for implementation. So this is something that they can also do, right? Reporting significant changes. For example, a hospital inform high trust when they implement a new electronic health record system, which changes the scope of the certified environment. Do you see, if you implemented that, it changed the scope, then that's something that you need to report it. I remember when even went through GDPR rule, understanding the different rules, right? If something changed, you want to be able to let them know. If a purpose change, just make sure you let them know, right? And that's the same principle that high trust also adopt. And then report security events. Say university inform high trust and the external auditor about a data breach involving student records as required in the certification agreement. So once you get that certification agreement and something happened, a data breach, you are also obliged to let them know, right? It's not something that you want to throw on the carpet and see how your company wants to bribe or parents or whatever. So based on what you guys have, you need to be able to let them know. If not, they can revoke your certification. Okay. Also, due diligence. A manufacturing company clearly selects an external assessor with expertise in the manufacturing sector to ensure the assessor understand their specific security needs and challenges. So that's something that, again, we want to take note, right? And if you realize, you see, a manufacturing company carefully select an external assessor with expert in manufacturing sector to ensure the assessor understand their specific security need and challenges. So that's why in the process of due diligence, and I will take it back, even you performing due diligence for your clients and vendors, this is something that you're really going to take your time, right? You don't just rush, because bringing somebody and your company get hurt because your vendor risks, again, is your risk. So we have some example that we want to quickly check. For example, it says that imagine a company named Secure Tech Industry is going through the high trust certification process. The first point that we touched about access entity relationship or responsibility, it says Secure Tech Industry must first and foremost implement encryption on all customer data stored in their cloud server to meet the high trust requirement for data protection. And not just necessarily only encryption. This is just an example. You have other control, access management, access control, other controls that they will need to implement. Okay. This must also maintain security they must also maintain security by regularly reviewing their security policies and practices to ensure that they comply with high trust standard. So do you see the point? Even when you have that certification, it doesn't end there. There's what we call continuous monitoring. You also have to keep monitoring, reviewing your policy, updating them, again, to be in compliance or practices as or to comply with the HITRUST standards. Assessor also to perform the HITRUST related engagement, HITRUST, both professional service firm and individual. Okay. Individuals within those firms must meet specific qualification. And this is very interesting. We're going to see, right? In-house, external, there are specification things that you're going to do. This is really sweet. I want you guys to be able to understand why time you have this holistic overview on HITRUST and how it plays, then you'll be like, this really makes sense. HITRUST require external and internal assessor to go through a vetting process to ensure they have the right knowledge, expertise, and experience to carry out assessment effectively. And we will see that. Type of assessor. First, we have external assessor and internal assessor. And I think earlier I said that our students play the role of internal and external assessor as well as an ISO, right? But who is an external assessor? As external assessor are third-party organizations approved by HITRUST. They have to be approved by HITRUST to perform assessment for organizations seeking certification. Say today, UST wants to get a HITRUST certification. We have to go with an approved third-party organization approved by HITRUST to help us achieve source certification. But on the flip side, internal assessor, these are individuals or department within an organization. Now, somebody working for UST, like me, I'm the CEO of UST. I work for UST. I am in-house, okay? So seeking certification, such an internal audit team that conduct assessment before external assessor perform their work. And that's one of the major roles in GRC. It doesn't matter, especially in-house, where we have to lead annual assessment. And relating annual assessment, some company will come, they'll come to assess your organization security posture every year. And they are doing that, you are leading the annual assessment, so this, you are playing the role of an internal assessor. But it's a little bit different as far as third part and HITRUST is concerned, and we're going to see that shortly. Okay, certification type of for assessor. First, this is important. Remember now we've talked on external assessor and internal assessor. We also have the certified practitioner certification. First, it said this is a designation for individuals who have been trained and certified to use a HITRUST framework. For example, requirement to achieve the CCSFP. First, the individual must complete the training course. If you go to their website, you will see the training course. Pass the CCSP certification exam. As a matter of fact, I actually took a look on that website. Like if you want to do self-paced, it's 1,300. If you want to do instruction-led, it's 3,500. That comes with retake of their exam. I'll take one attempt and then you can retake their exam 500 and something dollars. But that's something that if you're a professional, I will definitely go in for it for this in the future. But currently, I don't need it right now, right? And then also meet the experience requirement for working with HITRUST CFS. So, and it's very interesting though, because the UCSS certification types for assessor, they do not specify if it's for external assessor or internal assessor. And that's why this training is becoming so interesting. Certification types for assessor. Example, an IT consultant working for an external assessor firm using CCSFP to assess an organization compliance with the HITRUST CFS, right? So that's an example. So let's see. Certified HITRUST qualified. So that's the very first one that we've discussed, right? Type of assessor certification. That's the first one. They will also have the CHQP. That's a quality professional certification. First, they said this is a designation for individual who already hold a CCSP, FP. So you need to have that before you can have the quality assurance, right? So you need to be able to have this certification, certified practitioner certification. So you cannot achieve the quality assurance or professional certification without having the certified practitioner certification. So you need to have that, and that's why it said that this is designation for individuals who already hold the certified practitioner certification and then take additional training to specify in quality assurance for high trust assessment. So once you already have that, then you take an additional training to qualify for this. Requirements: first, to achieve CHQP, individual must first and foremost, again, you see, have the first certification, complete the CHQP training course, and then pass the CHQP certification exam. For example, a senior consultant like myself who oversees the quality of high trust assessment and ensure that the assessment meet high trust high standard is a CHQP. But you cannot achieve this certification with that. You need to first of all have this, take additional training to be able to get this other certification. External assessor requirement. External assessor must apply to high trust and be approved to conduct assessment. High trust ensure that only qualified firms are authorized to perform high trust assessment. Do you see? External assessor must apply to high trust and be approved to conduct assessment. You apply and then you have to be approved. High trust ensures that only qualified firms are authorized to perform the high trust assessment. So let's take a look. External assessor requirement. First, to maintain their high trust license, external assessor must employ at least, this is how this thing is becoming very important. As an external assessor, that's the organization that goes and help organization achieve the high trust certification. But for you to be even qualified as an external assessor, third-party organization that helps organization achieve this, you need to have 5 folks that are certified practitioner, 5. And then you need to have 2 quality assurance professionals. You see, 2 certified high trust quality assurance. You have 5 certified high trust practitioners and 2 certified high trust quality professionals. So if you have a total of 7 of these folks, then you qualified. Okay. Can USC also do something like this in the future? Maybe, why not? Because we can do it. I've been working with control for the rest of my life, right? External assessor requirement. They say, for example, a firm like Tech Assessor will need to have a 2 of 5. We already spoke about that. 5 certified practitioner, folks that hold that certification, as well as 2 QA. So they also need to have this to be able to be in compliance with the high trust rules. Roles in validating the assessment. 1, engagement executive. Say, for example, someone that holds a certified practitioner manages a relationship between the assessor as well as the assess entity and ensure the scope of the assessment is cleared, right? So this person managing relationship between assessors and then like the company, and also make sure scoping is very, very clear and understandable. And then you have an engagement lead, right? You see the first one is an engagement executive, engagement lead. Now someone who runs the day-to-day assessment, performing interviews and tests to validate security controls. So this is something that I've done. This is like literally my role. So now you start working with different folks, you start collecting the evidence, artifacts, and all those things. And then you have quality assurance reviewer. That's a QA. This person, and for you to work as a quality assurance, remember, you need to first of all have the certified practitioner certification before you can have the QA, right? Or be satisfied as a QA. And they said this person ensure the assessment is thorough and meet high trust quality standard. So imagine going through all that process. Again, you still test it, and then this other person, now that's why you talk of quality assurance. Now you have to check and check and check and verify. I said, yes, this made high trust and standard before, can send over for them to achieve their high trust certification. For example, in a high trust assessment for secure tech company, the engagement executive manages the scope of the assessment, that which is caused, while the engagement lead sees someone, another high trust certified practitioner perform field works, right? While the QA reviewer reviews the result to ensure the quality of the assessment. One of my roles that I'll play the role of performing a deep analysis of quality control. I've actually played the role of a QA because after I say so the assess, I collect those artifacts, I still read it, I read the policy, I match it with what they've provided, check out that control. There are times that even some assessor their work, you have to, still fed that control because still maybe the report, it doesn't really tie. So that is even like a quality assurance role that I've been playing in one of my roles. External assessor requirement, quality assurance. The quality assurance reviewer who must also be a both certified practitioner and a QA ensure the assessment meets both internal and HITRUST defined standards. And we'll see, for example, before submitting the assessment result, the QA review checks the work to ensure that everything was done according to HITRUST standards and that any exception were handled correctly. So before you could submit that assessment result for this organization to be HITRUST compliant, whatever, make sure you have performed due diligence. You've done a thorough job. Okay. Internal assessors are typically part of the organization being assessed. They perform readiness. So that we've talked about external assessor. Let's talk about internal assessor too. We've said that the internal assessor, again, they said they are typically part of the organization being assessed, like UST, for example. They perform readiness assessment or self-assessment before the official HITRUST external validation, before the external assessor are coming in. These are also trained professionals who also like have to prepare, submit their package before the external auditors can come in. And we'll see this shortly. Approval process. Internal assessor must be approved by HITRUST. Do you see? So though you work for that company, you are also being approved by HITRUST before external assessor can rely on their work. If you've done the work, they have to be approved by HITRUST before external can also rely on your work. Competency. Internal assessor must have knowledge of the HITRUST cybersecurity framework, HITRUST assurance program, and the assessment process. Okay. Staffing requirements. Internal assessor team must have at least 2 certified professionals. Do you see? So for a company thinking of going like UST, thinking of achieving HITRUST compliance, I need to have a minimum of 2 certified professional, 2 internal assessor. Then imagine the external assessor or external company third party coming in to help us achieve compliance. They need to have 5. You see, but you must have 2. So come to think, these are already professionals, people making money. So it doesn't matter where you are, but you see the standards that they've put in place, right, on staff to ensure competency and compliance. Reliance on internal assessor. External assessor may rely on the result of internal assessor testing if the work meet HITRUST. Remember, HITRUST must approve the work of the internal assessor if the external assessor should rely on their work, potentially reducing the amount of testing the external assessor has to do. Because come to think of it, you already have trained professional, you have expert practitioner, so why won't you trust them? But at the end of the day, we'll see different categories, right? Doesn't mean that they can just do anything and just submit it and think HITRUST will approve it. Not necessarily. We're going to see that shortly. Example, if an internal assessor tests the encryption practices with an organization and document its finding, the external assessor may use those findings to avoid repeating the test, right? So once you've tested internally and then you already have those findings, you've documented, of course, they can use their findings to avoid repeating the test. So this is something we also need to bear in mind. Key point and example. External assessor, again, just to sum it up, they are third-party organization approved by HITRUST and must have a team of the practitioner, certified practitioner, and the quality assurance. Example, Secure Access, a consulting firm, employs 5 practitioners and 2 QA to assess their client HITRUST compliance. Internal assessor are employees or department within an organization that perform preliminary assessment before external validation, right? Again, but still, internal assessor will also need to have two team members that have the certified practitioner, who are certified practitioner certified, right? And that's why it says that the internal audit department at company X using the certified practitioners to assess whether their company security are ready for a full HITRUST validation. Key points and example. The practitioner is for those who perform the assessment, validate security controls. For example, John, a certified HITRUST practitioner, performed the technical assessment of an organization's encryption methods, while QA is for those who perform quality assurance on the assessment to ensure the work meet HITRUST standards. Example, Sarah, a certified QA, reviews John's assessment to ensure that it follows all HITRUST protocols and guidelines. So QA perform another deep analysis. Certified practitioner, someone depending on their role, if they have to do the day-to-day analysis and validation, and then somebody, the QA, will be able to validate that, take whatever thing that this person have done, or Sarah relies on John's work, perform. That's why we call it quality assurance. The certified practitioner as well as the certified QA quality assurance certification are essential for individuals working as external or internal assessor in the HITRUST certification process. These certifications ensure that practitioners have the necessary expertise to assess an organization's security and privacy controls accurately, and they maintain the quality assurance needed to ensure the assessment are done correctly. External assessor must meet staffing and certification requirements, while internal assessor played a key role in preparing organization for their final HITRUST assessment. Independence requirement for HITRUST assessor. So this is another thing that we're going to discuss in depth. Okay. First, independence and objectivity are critical in any assessment, especially in the context of HITRUST assessment. Independence, okay? HITRUST defines specific independence requirement for both external and internal assessor to ensure that their evaluations are unbiased and that there are no conflicts of interest. And that's why we are going through all this hurdle, all this stress, because we want to make sure we have a report that is exempted from any conflict of interest or is not being biased, okay? Independence requirement for HITRUST assessor. We have key terms and concepts. First, external assessor. An external assessor is an individual third-party organization that evaluates whether a company, the assess company, meets HITRUST certification standard. Again, I'm repeating this because I want it to sink, okay? I want it to sink. That way you understand. Example, a company cyber audit industry is hired to assess health secure COPS compliance with HITRUST. Cyber audit industry is an external assessor because they are not involved with health secure daily protection, right? Because they are not involved with this in-house company, health secure, therefore under the canopy of external assessor. Internal assessor still someone within the assess company with like USTR company, for example, or a department within a company such as internal audits that evaluate its own systems before an external assessor comes in. For example, Secure Bank hire an internal assessor from their internal audit department to evaluate their compliance with HITRUST standards before bringing an external assessor, right? Independence, we've already defined independence, but let's quickly go through it. I don't know if I repeat, maybe just a repetition. Independence refers to the ability of the assessor to conduct the evaluation without any conflict of interest. The assessor must be free from any influence that might affect the outcome of the assessment. For example, a certified HITRUST practitioner from secure access, a company must remain unbiased when evaluating fintech solution, another company, security practices without interfering from fintech management. But we'll see another requirements. HITRUST set guidelines to ensure both external and internal assessors maintain their independence and objectivity when maintaining assessment. Independent requirement for assessor. First one, separate legal entity. Very important. The external assessor firm must be a separate legal entity from the assessed entity. That is not even something we can even argue or talk about, right? External assessor firm should be a separate entity from the assessed entity. This ensures there is no connection or potential for conflict of interest, because if it's not separated, then people will do whatever thing they want to do, right? And guess what? Now we are talking about the criticality and sensitive data and the fact that you have other companies that will rely on the HITRUST certification. So we need to make sure that anything that is being produced is accurate, as close to like 100%, right? That's why I say as close to, because of course you have human errors. So apparently, but whatever thing you're doing, you do not have any conflict of interest. It is free from conflict of interest, free from bias. Okay. For example, secure audits. A third-party assessment firm performs HITRUST assessment for tech corp. Secure audit is not owned by tech corp and operates independently, ensuring a fair and unbiased assessment. Independence of assessing function. The external or internal assessor function must not overlap with the business function being assessed. The assessor must not involve in implementation or operation of the controls they are evaluating. Do you see? There should not be any overlap. And that's why I cannot be somebody that I'm implementing a control and then you want me to still assess those controls. I'm going to do something. You never know, right? I'm assessing my own work. It doesn't work that way. If tech bank is being assessed by an internal team, the internal team from tech bank, if tech bank is being accessed by an internal team, the internal assessor, that is from tech bank internal audit department, should not be involved in implementing the security control, because they're the one involved in assessing. So if you are assessing, do you see internal team, you already have the certified HITRUST practitioner. If I am involved in implementing controls, that particular team or individual cannot be accessing those controls. Why? This ensure the assessment is not unbiased. Because this person is the one that involved in the implementation, or the internal team involved in the implementation of the security control, and they will be the one to be able to assess those security controls. So you are assessing your own work. You understand? And it doesn't work that way. And that's why we talk again of the fact that we want to uproot any, traits or form of, bias going on. Independence requirement, ownership of policy and procedure. I'm just loving it, right? The external or internal assessor must not have ownership or responsibility for the policy and procedure being assessed. This prevents any conflict of interest where the assessor could benefit from a favorable evaluation. Do you see? You must not have ownership. And remember, your policies are dependent on security controls. So I cannot be somebody that developed the policy. I cannot be somebody that developed, follow up, and I'm still being the one assessing that policy. No, that's why I said they must not have ownership or responsibility of policy and procedure being assessed. If I am assessing, I'm assessing and assessing. Someone else should develop it. Someone else should implement it. Let me assess their work. But I cannot do that and you still expect me to be able to assess my own work. It doesn't work that way, right? And that's why, for example, if data guard is assessing cloud tech's data privacy policy, data guard must not have been involved in creating or implementing those policies to ensure neutral assessment. So if cloud tech is advising or employ data guard that they are assessing their data security policy, they want to be in adherence. So they are assessing, but who are those involved in the implementation, the creation, the development of the policy? Data guard cannot do that because there will definitely be a conflict of interest or some form of bias going on, right? Because they are the one that developed that policy. They are the one that follow up with the implementation of that policy, and they are the ones still assessing the policy. So you get an independent team, also being approved by HITRUST to come in and be able to help you guys achieve that. Okay. Management restriction on testing. This is very, very interesting. Management of the assessed entity should not be able to influence the nature, the scope, or extent of the testing during the assessment test. You see, management restriction. Management of the assessed entity should not be able to influence. So top management, they cannot influence what will be done, right? So you cannot influence the nature, the scope, the extent when that testing is being carried out. And remember, that's why when we talk about honesty, you want to be also accurate. If there are any deficiency, you got to communicate it before they even start the work, right? That way we know. But you cannot take your position, your leadership position, and feel like I can influence this testing. No, it doesn't work that way. For example, secure tech management cannot dictate what security controls are tested to limit the depth of the testing performed by the external assessor. Assessor already have a scope, know the number of controls that they will be testing. So management cannot come and telling you or tell you that out of maybe, just for example, 100 control you're going to test, remove 20 control. It does it like we don't need it. No, management does not have that influence. And that's why I say there is a restriction from the management side. Again, this is to ensure that the assessment is thorough and still unbiased. I love this point. Previous involvement of assessor. Personnel who have been involved in the implementation or operation of the assess entity control in the past 12 months cannot perform the validated assessment for that entity. If, let's say, for example, maybe, let's just say internal assessor, maybe I'm one of them, I was involved in the development and implementation of that policy within the past 12 months, I cannot be involved in assessing that particular policy or controls. Or if a company, maybe we associate to an external assessor companies that comes in, create our policy, implement those controls, guess what? They cannot also validate the assessment or assess those control, the efficacy of those control within the past 12 months. So if they have worked within the past 12 months, they cannot do so. You need to get another, independent team to help you achieve that. You see, this is so sweet. Security, it's sweet, right? For example, if consult, if cybersec consult worked with Health Corp to implement data encryption control last year, you see, cybersec consult is an external assessor company, work with Health Corp in-house to maintain data encryption control last year. The same team cannot perform the HITRUST assessment for the Health Corp this year. If you guys did that work last year, help them now. Health Corp want to achieve HITRUST compliance or to go through the certification process. This same company cannot help. They cannot assess. So you have to use another company. So come to think of all the information system organization need to achieve HITRUST compliance, and then think of all the different professionals that they will need, right? A new team must be brought in to avoid any bias or conflict of interest. Again, permitted consulting services, right? External or internal assessor can provide certain consulting services such as HITRUST policy consulting or penetration testing, but you can, for example, UST, we're also a consulting company, right? We can provide that, but do you see when it comes to remediation services? No, you're not going to do that. Making changes to the policy or implementing control are prohibited to maintain objectivity, right? So what are they entitled to do? What is permitted? A consulting firm can advise FinSecure or in-house company on creating a new policy, but this same company cannot implement that policy or fix any issue discovered during the assessment. If you advise them, but when they are assessing, there's nothing you can do, right? So you cannot do it. We will assess it and we will get all the errors, all the mistake that you guys, all the posts, we will get it, right? But you cannot go and test or assess your own work. Let's round this up with some scenarios. For example, separation of assets and assessor and assess entity. Again, just repeating the exact way it's take, right? Say, for example, tech secure industry and external assessor is hired to assess safe banks compliance with HITRUST. Tech secure must be a separate legal entity and cannot have any ownership or operational ties to safe bank, right? This prevents any potential conflict of interest during the assessment. Internal assessor role. Secure Bank uses an internal assessor from an internal audit department to evaluate their HITRUST compliance before inviting an external assessor. The internal assessor is independent of the department that are assessing, right? If you are implementing or doing whatever thing, you are also, be independent, of the the department assessing, your readiness. Assessing to ensure objectivity and avoid any bias in their assessment. So you don't want somebody to implement Credo's policy and then go again and be assessing their own policy. It doesn't work that way. Previous involvement in control implementation. Say, for example, Risk Audit Limited worked with TechHawk last year to implement a new firewall security control. This year, Risk Audit Limited is prohibited from conducting a HITRUST assessment for TechHawk because the same personnel who help implement the control cannot assess its effectiveness. You see? So these are some of the things that we covered already. Consulting versus remediation. Cyber consulting can provide HITRUST readiness assessment and give secure advice on policy improvement. However, cyber consulting cannot implement the changes themselves. If they did, it will create a conflict of interest during the final assessment process. And what is the takeaway on this slide? The independence requirement for both external and internal assessor are designed to ensure objectivity and fairness in the HITRUST assessment. This guideline prevent any conflict of interest that might bias the result of an assessment. By following this requirement, HITRUST ensure that organizations seeking certification are evaluated fairly and accurately, helping them improve their information security and risk management practices. So we will stop this video here and then we'll go now on the assessment type. This is a very, very, very interesting course, guys. So we'll go to the assessment type and then we'll take it from there, right? But I hope you were able to learn something. I hope you were able to learn something. So stay tuned. I'll try and upload the next video sometime next week or by the week over the weekend. And then we'll take it from there. But again, it's very, very interesting. All right, I'll see you on the next video. And do not forget to like, subscribe, share with your friend and family. Again, this is a lot of information that we are putting out for free. And I also want to thank you guys so much for the love that you'll be showing to this girl. Okay, bye.